they needed to get out of town. So they said, if you spare my life, you can have my children. There were other crusades, such as the one that continued. The Fifth Crusade was from 1217 to 1221. The Christians captured some lands but never held them. Frederick II of the Roman Empire led the Sixth Crusade from 1228 to 1229. That didn't last. He got into disfavor with the Pope, and he tried to take over. And then there was the Seventh Crusade that was led by King Louis IX of France. That never worked, from 1248 to 1254. His expedition became disorganized, and he literally had to sell some of his troops in order to get out of town alive. And then they say that there was an Eighth Crusade that came out about 1291, but that never really worked. Now, what I really want to get to is the results, because really the reason why these crusades took place was because the Moors brought in things from the world. They brought in different kinds of animals into Europe, particularly Spain and Portugal. And then they moved into France, you know, across the Pyrenees Mountains. Napoleon III himself said that Africa begins at the Pyrenees, which meant that the Pyrenees is what splits Spain from France, or what was ancient Gaul. And that, in fact, Africans could be seen as far up as the Pyrenees, up along the borders of France. But because of weather and climate, they moved back down into the southern parts that we'll go over in terms of our geography session the second time that we come through this. But the key is that they were really using Christ as an example to travel the world. They were hooked on something that the Moors had brought in known as sugar. They couldn't get that out of their system. In fact, they said that Europeans were hooked on sugar the way they're hooked on cocaine today.
Yes, sir.
Sugar was the cocaine of the ancient world. And that a spoonful cost as much as $25 a spoonful.
Yes.
And that $25 at that time was like almost a year's salary now.
Yes, sir.
And so in order to offset this devastation happening in Europe, they had to find new sources of sugar. And they couldn't depend on the Moors because the Moors could control it. In other words, the Moors were drug pushers. So in order to gain control over these drugs, they began to return back in the same paths that the Moors had come into Europe. That's why they were on the waters in the 1492s and the 1482s looking for ways to get sugar. And this is why they were trying to find that quick way around to the east to get sugar. This is why when they did get to the Caribbean, the first thing that they developed, there's a brother by the name of Dr. Fraginalis that wrote a wonderful, insightful book on the Cuban plantation to understand what was going on in Cuba and the sugar plantation, and why Domino, Dominican Republic, Domino, you can see a relationship here. Domino in terms of Domingo, in terms of God, in terms of Sunday, you can see where their God was. Domino sugar. You see Domingo. Now, how do you say Sunday in Spanish? All right, you see? So you can see that relationship in this thing going on right here. So that sugar became what they were after. So the Crusaders developed a war. And now here's another thing about finding. Why do you find Othello in Shakespeare? Why is there an African in Venice? Why is there an African in Italy? Why do the clothes that the Italians wear, where did they come from? Where did the fabric come from? It don't grow there. The wine, where did the wine come from? The Valencia orange, the fruits, the vegetables come from. They weren't grown in Europe. They were brought into Europe by the Moors. This is why the Crusades took place. And it wasn't long before we knew they would try to get to the world. So when we presented and developed our idea, we said that the Crusades were the precursor to Columbus. We should have seen them coming. My brothers and sisters, Shemem Hotep.
Okay, give them a black hand. Now we come to the most important part of the lecture, is the questions and answers. I ask only one thing: don't give us any Declaration of Independence speeches. And try to, a lot of those questions that you're asking them over there, give it to them right now. Questions? You asked them a question about the Moors, right?
I answer the question about the Moors. I said, since the Moors was doing a lot of training, would they also capture Africans and enslave them too?
Yes.
That's the question I asked.
Yes, they were. And also there were Europeans being sold, bought and sold. A lot of Europeans being bought and sold. In fact, that is what the Europeans first had to trade, because they didn't have anything else. And they particularly traded their women to the Moors.
Another question. You said in the Crusades about the Europeans selling their kids.
Yes.
They were selling them to the Moors.
Yes. Selling them to the Moors, selling them to people for food, selling them for anything that they could get along the route. Because remember, they were walking.
There's a book also, The Iceman and Heritage, speak about that too. I mean, you know.
Yes, but that was an earlier part of history. They have always had no problem. See, this is why, as a people, we should always be careful, because their first slaves were their women.
Right.
And it's important that we don't get too caught up, because yes, it may be about the complexion of your skin today, but that's only another illusion that they're using to do what they do. Because for years, for centuries, they sold their women to each other. They sold their children to each other. They ate their wives, they ate their children. The European, and this is why when I spoke about the concept of the paterfamilias, the idea of the male being so in charge of things, that has become a part because violence has always been a part of their makeup. Sigmund Freud said that the European world is motivated by sex and aggression. That's why O.J. Simpson's case became such a prolific case, because it had both, but it added race in it too. But anything with sex and aggression is going to get them interested.
They also usually come to Africa and take the little boys and molest them too. I mean, Europeans.
Yes. And you know, not only that, but there's another very interesting thing on the ships. A lot of times we talk about the rape of women, but the rape of little boys needs to be looked at also.
Yes.
And also the plantations of Louisiana amongst, I don't want to just say one group of people, but the French, in terms of Louisiana. There were many different things going on the plantations down there. There were atrocities on all different levels, young and old, male and female. The European has, and again, you know, we have to come back and do something on melanin. Because when you understand melanin and the role of melanin in the pineal gland, and what happens to the pineal gland in the Ice Age, when Africans were cordoned off from the southern world, locked into caves, having to put clothes on, being denied the access of the light and heat energy of the sun for thousands of years, and generations, handing down this frozen legacy to their children, would be what Dr. Richard King calls the calcification of the pineal gland. The calcified pineal gland, if you wanted to look at it physically, is the difference between a grape and a raisin.
Dr. King, you wrote a book speaking about the black dot?
Yes. The African Origins of Biological Psychiatry. He's also written a book on melanin. I remember when he first introduced these concepts to us, I mean, we were just astounded by that. To understand, and this is also very important because so many of us are light complexion. And so what do we say to light complexion African Americans when they say, well, if you're talking about melanin and skin color, where do we fit in this? Well, the reality of it is, when you look at this scientifically, let's break it down so we can deal with these issues. And that is that melanin is in your skin. Melanin is in every organ and gland in your body. It is in every part of the cosmic universe. In fact, what makes the universe black is cosmic melanin. When it physically manifests itself on Earth, it becomes carbon. Carbon becomes melanin. Right? Well, melanin through the melanosome, through melanocyte, then melanin being a molecule. But melanin is in every organ and gland in your body. If you didn't have it in your eyes, you'd be blind. If you didn't have it in your ears, you wouldn't hear. If you didn't have it in your muscles, you wouldn't be able to develop them. So melanin is in every part of your body. So that you can be someone rich in skin melanin, but you may be poor in pancreatic melanin. Like our brother Frankie Crocker, the chief rocker. I mean, brilliant brother. Pioneer. Revolutionized music. Brilliant brother. Again, had his agenda, but hey, listen, sometimes you get there, you got to have your agenda. But the brother wasn't rich in pancreatic melanin. Therefore, in life, the pancreatic melanin not being produced made it weak. He got a weakness in his pancreatic he grew a tumor and that killed him. Okay? If you have a weakness in terms of your lung, your melanin isn't working in your